that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Really any questions? Is that I'm
Okay.
curious to know, and you can be totally honest, if hearing that read was like if it was followable.
It was good to have the
Yeah.
text to look at, but yeah, it was.
It is complex. I didn't read the text, but I could understand most
I did get lost.
Yeah.
I did get
first
lost
chunk.
a couple of times.
Yeah, it's pretty abstract.
My question sort of relates to how the game connects to what you're talking about, but in a specific way. What was interesting about this game, this sort of like what I think you're calling in this paper sort of like this non-communication, this like sort of speaking that's not really speaking with others, was that it was humorous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what were we laughing at in that? Were we laughing at like some silliness about the words themselves? Were we laughing at our inability to communicate? Like, what was, and is that humor necessarily a part of this kind of communication?
That's a really good question. I think to answer the second part of that question, no, I don't think it has to be, because Salon's poems are not usually funny.
Right.
They're usually really weird, and he's speaking from a tragic personal history. But I do think that the humor, I mean, I'm not sure why we're, I mean, I know, it's funny because these become like juxtapositions. I mean, it's funny in the way that it's funny for like a 5-year-old to subvert logical structures of language, right? It's silly. It's like silly by definition because it doesn't make sense. And yet, it does make a certain sense. It makes a certain, I mean, I think when it works, it creates this sort of cognitive dissonance, or this space which is, a sort of way or path for our imagination to sort of take us outside of ourselves. And that is exactly what Salon, I think, is trying to do in his poems. And this idea of the poem as a place where the I becomes an estranged I and frees itself from itself. And even in this opening poem, you wedged into your deepest, climb out of yourself forever. Mm-hmm. There's that kind of like amazingly rich paradox that has to do with this reaching out. I mean, it's going out of yourself, but toward another person, always for Salon. And I think that's what makes it. I mean, that's what makes it relevant to conversation.
Yeah.
Cool.
I kind of read the laughter a little differently. That sometimes we laugh because it's funny, but we also laugh because we're uncomfortable. Not saying that everyone here's like, oh, but because we have these expectations about the if-then statements, and we're trying, when they don't make sense, to sort of piece meaning together. We're trying to find some meaning in that. And I haven't read Salon at all. I can kind of imagine that, like, reading these things that sound like they're supposed to be references to something, but maybe aren't.
Right, that's well put.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's always both, it seems to be, which is what Derrida talks about in a really kind of mind-blowing way. That, he's both talking about specific events, and he's not at the same time, or like by talking about them, they're immediately effaced, become trace, and it's kind of insane. It's just like reading this stuff. This was sort of reworked from a final paper I did this semester, which brought in Heidegger into all of this stuff. But yeah, it's either, like Heidegger, I think people either write it off as like nonsense, or spend a long time being like, wow, it's crazy.
I think
I did the latter.
what's the most amazing about his poems is that they manage to not be funny at all, and they're absurd, but they're not funny. They're always really sad, and he's making up new words, and yeah, I mean, I just realize this now, but I mean,
Yeah.
I usually do think that poems written with what seems like nonsensical language are
Right.
funny.
Surrealism is
Well,
often
and
funny.
I
yeah.
mean, really, anything. I mean, but like his poems are just always so tragic.
Yeah, and I think it's because they're tied to. There's a sense of like absurdity, but it's absurdity that's like working in this very particular way. It seems to me in this paradoxical way, and I think that like I don't know when I finished reading a Salon poem, I'm kind of like left in this like whoa, that I'm transported somewhere. So maybe that's why. But yeah, he's incredible. And the speech, I mean, if you're interested in poetics, the Meridian speech is really incredible too. Thanks so much.
I have a
please.
It was only received verbally, no one was reading it, right?
The Meridian speech?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
now
but it was
everyone
then, you know.
I wonder if it's a different thing, you know, 'cause I wonder if performed you could experience it more authentically or something.
That's an interesting question.
This is translated too.
And it's translated in French.
Yeah,
Or German. I don't know. It must have been German.
It's funny, there was this French philosopher we read, Dufresne, who talks about like aesthetics and phenomenological experiences and stuff. And he actually says that poetry needs to be spoken for it to be truly performed.
Yeah, that's definitely my school of thought. I think there's a school of thought that was said the opposite. Cool, thanks.